Eastwood Trooper great, Butch Henry. Hey, Butch.
How are you?
I'm good. So lots of things going on in Major League Baseball, huh?
Yeah, you might be thrown for a loop here, but I don't follow a whole lot anymore.
Really?
No, not much.
Really? I saw this guy, his name is Tatis, Tattis.
Yeah, Fernando got banned 80 games.
Yeah. Was that stuff going on when you were playing?
Yeah, it was going on.
It's gone on forever, huh?
It's a product of a performance-driven industry. When you have something that's going to increase your performance, people tend to, which performance increases your pay. You tend to be willing to bend the rules.
Yeah. I guess it's never stopped, right?
Well, I think it's stopped to some extent. I don't think players are doing it with the impunity they were back when I played. I think a lot of guys do it during the off season now, and then give themselves a time to run the stuff out of their system before the season starts. But during the season, I don't think it's done. I mean, as we were just talking about, I think Fernando Tatis got popped for 80 games for testing positive, but and you have a handful here and there every year, but for the most part, I think they've curbed the in-season use of the stuff.
Was it just wide open when you were there?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. No, nobody's trying to hide it.
Wasn't illegal.
I guess that's right. And baseball owes it to those guys, to McGuire and Sosa, and those guys saved the game with that little home run chase.
Oh yeah, yeah. What was that? 95 when they got into that home run battle they got into, and that was right after the 94 lockout and 94 strike that we went on, and fans were mad.
Yeah,
fans were angry, and it brought the fans back. Maybe in 96, 95 or 96. I don't remember when.
And ownership has turned its back on the players. I mean, you've got a guy like Roger Clemens that didn't make it to the Hall of Fame. That's nuts.
I mean, you look at some of the more prolific players that are being banned from playing baseball, or are being inducted into the Hall of Fame, that are more than worthy. And it's a shame, because the teams were doing the things they were doing with full knowledge. I mean, everybody knew what was going on. It wasn't a secret. In some cases, the team doctors were prescribing and even giving the shots.
Wow.
So
what's your position on the Pete Roses and the Roger Clemens? Is there a difference in Pete Rose and Roger Clemens?
Look, here's my take on Pete Rose is, and I know the guy. He was around managing and coaching when I was in the Reds organization. In fact, he was managing. Not one of the nicest humans you'll ever meet, in my opinion. Joe Nuxall, basically gave me the skinny on the guy, and it doesn't take away from what he did on the baseball field. All of the infractions, all of the things he was accused of, admitted to, and stuff, he did as a manager.
Yeah.
And he wasn't going to get into the Hall of Fame as a manager. He was going to get in the Hall of Fame as a player.
Yeah.
And I think he should be awarded for the things he did as a player. And how long are you banned? I mean, for life? Him and I think it was it Barla Giamatti that banned him?
Yep.
He and Pete Rose, I think they had a thing anyway. So it was more vindictive than just, hey, you broke the rules. But what he did was pretty bad. I don't want to take away from gambling on the game and gambling on his own games.
Yeah.
But I think there has to go a little bit. You got to cut the guy a little bit of slack based on the fact he never bet against his team.
Yeah.
But I think he should be. I think he should be awarded for the things he did as a player.
Yeah. They say that Barry Bonds is another peach of a human being, huh?
Well, he and I actually fought.
Really?
In a brawl in '93, yeah, in Colorado. He kind of blindsided me. It's a long, convoluted story, but I don't have a lot of respect for him as a person, but another one who you can't diminish his achievements.
He still had to hit the home runs, man.
You got to hit them. If they went 15 feet further, back in the day, except for Fenway, you didn't have ballparks that had 290-foot right field walls. And
boy, Yankee Stadium's ridiculous.
It's those guys don't even try to pull the ball anymore. It's crazy. And the things that guy did, the back speed, it was just incredible.
Yeah. So how old were you when somebody first put the ball in your hand to deliver the W? Do you remember?
When I first started throwing baseball around.
When people first said, Butch is different than Doug. Look at the way Butch, throws a baseball. Were you 10-year-old?
I was real wild when I was young. In fact, they wouldn't let me pitch. They actually let me catch. And then I played shortstop as a left-hander because I at that time I couldn't throw strikes. I threw the ball everywhere, but I threw hard, but it went everywhere but where it was supposed to. And at some point I decided that I was going to figure things out. It was probably the my 6th grade year, 5th or 6th grade year. I painted we had an area in my backyard that was relatively flat, and from the rock wall to the house was almost 60 feet. And I painted a circle, strike high circle there, and I stood out there and threw balls up against that wall. My mom still lives in the house, and the brick is falling out of the wall where I hit that dot so many times. And I figured out how to throw strikes. I figured out how to repeat a delivery and throw strikes. And
yeah. Where'd you go to junior high? Did you go to Eastwood Junior High?
I went to Eastwood Middle. Back in those days, they didn't have junior high baseball like they do now.
Yeah, that's too bad.
A lot of things have changed.
Who was on the team? Was Frank Castile on your team?
Frank was on my team in high school. Yeah, we came up through the ranks from freshman at Eastwood all the way through varsity.
Were you allowed to play varsity as a freshman?
We were made. Both of us were made to stay on the JV because Coach Sines was afraid we would get roughed up and it would damage us. He wanted us to have a year of seasoning before we were both put on varsity as sophomores.
Yeah. And how'd you do at Eastwood? I mean, I know how you did, but what are the numbers?
I'm not a stat person. I couldn't tell you from.
You won more than you lost, right?
Yeah, by a couple.
Yeah. I know you're 33 and 33 in the big leagues. Right.
And that's splitting time from between the bullpen and starting. So there, a lot of my innings were out of the bullpen and
what'd
decisions.
You prefer?
I actually liked relieving, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I liked coming out of the bullpen. I liked going to the ballpark every day, knowing there was a chance I was going to get to play.
Yeah.
And that mentality, that being a part of possibly being a part of the game kept you involved. As a starter, you could kind of, for 4 days in between, you did all your work, before the game started, and you could kind of drift off. You didn't have to pay attention to what was going on. You weren't real interested in the situations. It was real easy to drift away. As a reliever, you had to sit out in the bullpen and you had to watch and you had to, kind of get into the feel, the embodiment of the game, the way the game was flowing, and figure out, who's on deck, who's in the hole. Are they going to be looking at somebody to get up? Is it going to be me? Are these my innings? It just going to the ballpark every day, knowing you had a chance to get in the game and be a part was a lot more fun.
Yeah. So you start with Houston, you end with the Mariners.
Yeah, my last stint in the big leagues was with the Mariners. I played 2 more years. I played 2 more years, but never quite could get back to the big leagues.
Yeah, you play all minor leagues.
I played in AAA. Yeah. I took a year off. We had some things at home that needed to be taken care of. So 2000, I was at home all year. I had walked away from Colorado. I had a major league contract with Colorado and voided that to come home and take care of some issues.
Yeah.
And 2001, I got signed with Toronto. And actually, funny story, I pitched fairly well for Toronto that year. Got called into the office it was like the second to the last night of a homestand. And Omar Malave, the manager, told me that they're clearing room, that I'm being called up. And this was 2001, by the way. So I'm packing up. My wife's packing up. We're going to make the drive from Syracuse to Toronto. Everything's great. We're all happy. The next night we get in there and he calls me in the office. I was like, hey man, I'm out of here. I'm back to the big leagues. And he tells me we're releasing you. What? And I had clauses in my contract that if I wasn't a free agent by a certain date, I could declare free agency. If I wasn't back to the big leagues, by a certain date, I could declare free agency. And apparently, and it's a weird tie to Frank Castillo, but Frank was in Toronto 2 years prior, and they had rehabbed him and got him healthy again, and he pitched for him. Well, he signed a 2-year deal with Boston and left Toronto. And we had the same agent. My agent, Jim Turner, had signed Frank like 4 years before. And I'd been with Jimmy since I was in the minor leagues. And he's got guys like Ryan Sandberg and he had some pretty powerful major leaguers. And anyway, to say that the make a long story short, Gord Ash didn't want to bring me to the big leagues because Frank, he got him back to the big leagues, got him reestablished, and Frank left to go to Boston. And
wow. So what was the whole deal the night they were calling you up?
They put the guy on waivers and then rescinded once, reclaimed him once but they didn't, because of what happened with Frank. Gord Ash was not going to bring me back to the big leagues. Dave Stewart called me on the phone, who was the assistant GM. And he says, Butch, I've done everything I can. I want you up here. Everybody wants you up here, but Gord's not going to do it. And, that year was, I made a handful of stupid decisions. I should have gone back to the Reds. Darryl Rogers was he was my roommate in the minor leagues in Cedar Rapids and then in Chattanooga one year. He was the general manager in Cincinnati. And he called me and said, I saw you just got released. He goes, come here. I got one kid in front of you that we're disciplining. We're going to call him back up and you're next. And I wound up going to Milwaukee because they only had one lefty in the bullpen, Ray King. And he wasn't pitching real well. And 2 days after I went, decided to go to Milwaukee, they signed another lefty, Lance Painter, who was a pure reliever, threw a little bit harder than me. And he gets to Indianapolis with me, and we're both there in Indianapolis. We've got out clauses within 2 days of each other, and they call him up. And after I had just thrown a complete game, I threw like 144 pitches, beat the Yankees, pitched really well, and they called Lance Painter up.
That's a lot of pitches.
That's the most I'd ever thrown in a game.
Yeah.
I couldn't lift my arm up the next day. I was hurting so bad, but it turned out I got so mad. We were on our way to Toledo. I got into Toledo, called the pitching coach, called the manager, and told him to basically, kiss my butt. I'm out of here. I'm taking my out clause. You guys can punt. And they begged me, don't go. You're pitching well here. We like you, just give it and I was just mad. I've learned the hard way through life to never make decisions when you're pissed.
Yeah.
So
what do you think about the way they pitch now?
Excuse me. I'm sorry. Oh, well, let me finish my story. The funny thing is, Lance Painter went up, and 2 days later, he blew his elbow out.
Wow.
I would have been in the big leagues 2 days down the road had I just stayed. So, and I never got back to the big leagues. So that was one of the bigger failures of my career that I look back on is making that decision.
Yeah.
But
how long did it take you to go manage the minors?
I tried real hard to come back, and I got back to spring training with Boston again and tore my knee up, my other knee. I'd already blown my knee out with them once, and I tore my ACL with them like the last week of spring training. I had the team made as a reliever, and they released me right then and there. So I rehabbed my knee, went back to the Dominican. I pitched in the Dominican Winter League, and then tore my shoulder up in the Winter Dominican League.
Damn.
And I just sat down and told my wife, I think somebody's trying to tell me something. I can't stay on the field anymore. If it's not one thing, it's another. So I got on the horn to the pitching coordinator in Cincinnati, who I came up through the system with him, and they really liked me. It was Sammy Ellis, and told him that I think I'm done playing. I'd like to get into coaching. What could they do for me? And it was instantaneous. We've got a spot for you. Come start coaching. And in 2003, I started my coaching career.
Wow. With the Reds?
With the Reds, yeah.
Yeah. How long did you coach?
I coached in the minor leagues with them for 3 years. I stayed down in Florida 1 year, just kind of floated around as I really didn't have a team. I was just more down there, helping kids as they needed it, which I really enjoyed. I enjoyed working with the young kids back then. Times have changed, but it was fun. These kids were receptive. I was fresh out of the big leagues, and it was fun. Then I went to Billings 1 year. I was supposed to go, move up the next year. They didn't move me up. And once again, I got a little upset and was offered a job here in town with a company. The money was really good, at first sight. And I was a little put off that Tim Naring wasn't moving me up through the system like he said he was. So I told him I'm going to step away from the game. and took this job away from baseball. And I had, the further I got away from the game, the more I missed it. I was still young and capable, and this job didn't pan out like I thought it was going to. You know, things were the optics were, you know, once you got into it, it was way different than what it was sold to me as. And you know, everything, it wasn't a salary, it was a draw. And you know, you had to pay that money back eventually.
Ouch.
And yeah. And luckily, Steve Kaplowitz in 2006 started lobbying for me to manage the Diablos. And
well, Steve Kaplowitz and I are lobbying to get you at the community college.
Well, community college.
That's where you need to be.
It's yeah. Good luck. I've been through that. I've been through that gauntlet, and it just doesn't seem to. It never seems to pan out. I would do it in a heartbeat, and you know, they could sign me to a lifelong contract. I would never want to go anywhere else. I said as much. But you know, that's
so. Cappy so Kaplowitz helped you with the El Paso team.
He lobbied for me, and they expressed interest. And you know, I had never managed before. The game, you know, I know the game. The game is what it is, and decided I would test those, you know, uncharted waters of being a manager, and got into that, and I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the baseball side of it. I enjoyed the strategy, the things that I had to learn as a manager, that you never really think about as a player or even a pitching coach. You know, you're not real worried about it. You know, the subtle, you know, ebbs and flows and the things that, and I was doing both. We had a guy that was a pitching coach, and he helped, but you know, I was basically doing the lion's share of pitching coach and managing, and you know, player procurement, player you know, contracts, negotiating. It was a full-time job.
Yeah.
And
who owned the team back then?
It was an ownership group. I don't even remember. We really didn't part on good terms. The way they, you know, managers come and go, but the way they did me the last 2 years, you know, lowering my salary, the money I had to hire players, and you know, all the money we were making. You know, the fans here in El Paso were wonderful. We were drawn. I mean, we were leading the league almost. Well, it was either us or St. Paul every year in attendance.
Yeah.
Well, that money wasn't being put back into El Paso Diablo baseball. It was all funneling its way to their other team in Grand Prairie, who was they weren't making money. They're drawing a couple of hundred a night, and you know, they had Pete Incaviglia as their manager, and they weren't making any money there, and all of the money we were making was going that way. And
that sucks.
It is what it is. And I'm never going to be one to tell somebody how to spend their money. But when you're when you're telling me this team is going to win this year and you're not, and we're beating them in a series, and I'm getting on phone calls with ownership and you know, general managers saying, don't sweep them. You better not sweep them. And things, and it just, you know, it just, I lost respect. I lost the desire. I lost the drive. It became, the job became a burden. And
Yeah.
I knew they were in 2010. I knew they were going to fire me. I knew they were going to. And, I had to hear it online. They
Yeah.
did, the general manager didn't call me on the phone and tell me what was up. I read about it online.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it is what it is.
That's
But
crazy.
that's water way under the bridge. It's lessons learned. And
So are the teams that you played for in the big leagues, is there a difference between organizations?
Well, yeah. I mean, there's all kinds of differences. There's, you've got your Montreals. I probably had more fun in Montreal than any place I ever played. And the joke in Montreal was, and it seems like Washington's kind of becoming the same way. They were considered the University of Montreal.
Yeah.
Because good players spend their 3 years there and then they go make money somewhere else.
Yeah.
That the teams I played on in Boston and Seattle, I played on that team in Seattle with and even Houston to some extent. I don't look at Houston the same way because I was a rookie, in Houston. And that clubhouse, was, I don't want to say hostile, but back then rookies were, we were secondhand citizens. Mm-hmm. And you had to earn your stripes. And so I don't even look at Houston, but Seattle, Boston, great places to play. You had everything you needed. But the clubhouses weren't quite the same as it was in Montreal.
Yeah.
We would have 23 guys. We'd get off a plane in New York and we'd have 23 guys meet at a restaurant to eat. It was just the closeness, the way we were together in Montreal was different.
Yeah.
And it may be because there wasn't a whole lot of money up there. Everybody was, the same, but we were close and good Lord, we had good players, man. Larry Walker, Marquise Grissom, Kenny Hill, Jeff Facero,
Wow.
John Wetland,
Wow.
Mel Rojas, David Segui, Mike Lansing, Darren Fletcher is kind of the unsung guy. You ask people who Darren Fletcher was and they don't, but to me, he was the favorite guy I ever threw to in my life.
Really?
I loved throwing to Darren Fletcher. He and I we would get on the same wavelength and, he didn't wow anybody with his bat. He didn't, he wasn't, a catch and throw guy that would, just blow runners up. But, this guy could catch and I loved throwing to Darren Fletcher. Yeah. But the teams were good but we were together and that made it even funner.
Yeah. Did you pitched in Yankee Stadium, huh?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think I pitched in Yankee Stadium. I went to Yankee Stadium, but I don't think I pitched there.
Yeah. Rocky Coppinger told me that the New York fans know everything about your mother.
Yeah, that's a lot of places are like that. The delivery, the delivery is a little different, in Philadelphia and New York and places like that. Chicago, they were some of the most educated fans I've ever seen. Not necessarily about your mom, but you'd be running in the outfield and you'd have a guy yell at you, "Hey, Henry, I remember in A-ball in Cedar Rapids, you walked 4 in a row in Rockford on this day. You suck." And
oh wow,
yeah, it's amazing. I loved Chicago. I loved playing at Wrigley. It was one of those ballparks. I'll tell you up front, I wasn't an outdoor grass guy. I love the domes and I love the turf.
Wow.
But pitching in Fenway and pitching in Wrigley was an experience second to none. And thank God that they hadn't started all those night games in Wrigley. You know, when I was there, we were still playing day games and whatnot. But the night games, in fact, I think they put up the lights in like, was it 95? Or 96, and I'd moved to the American League, so it didn't bother me anymore. But there was just something great about going to the ballpark early and pitching in Wrigley, you know, at 1 o'clock, knowing Harry Carey and Steve Stone were up there talking and carrying on, because we watched. You know, I was in the Midwest League in Cedar Rapids in 88, Chattanooga in 89 and 90, and you know, we would watch the Cub games in the afternoon before we had to go to the ballpark, and listening to those, you know, Harry Carey and Steve Stone. It was fun to actually get there.
What about the other Eastwood guys that I can remember? Bombard, did you ever run into them?
Yeah. As we talked about, Rich was actually a pitching coach of mine in Boston. He was the AAA pitching coach when I was in Boston. So as you know, in spring training, the AAA guys usually around the big league camp, because a lot of his pitchers are in big league camp, and so they're there to help out. And, you know, I got to know Rich fairly well, you know, through those years. Mark, conversely, was my manager in Cedar Rapids in '88. And I got with him, and we still we talked even when I went back and coached for the Yankees for a couple of years. He was a special assistant there. So we, you know, we don't keep in touch. We don't see each other or talk, but he was. They both were fairly big influences on my life early on in my career.
I guess Rich played at Eastwood before you, huh?
They both did, yeah. I mean, Mark was, what year was Mark? Like 70, and Rich was 75 or 76, something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah, I'm not a stat or date guy.
And Lonnie Duggar?
Lonnie was there. I've never met him. I don't know much about him. I don't have a whole lot of insight about him. I just remember everybody talking about what a great pitcher he was.
Yeah.
So
ended up with the Angels.
Yeah, you also had Chuck Heist, who went to Eastwood. He was a heck of a hitter, and I think he got to AA or AAA with the Royals, I believe.
Yeah.
So he's got his business here in town now, Heist Disposal, and he's had a daughter that's a heck of an athlete. She wound up be it volleyball or Alexia Heist, and I think she went to TCU, I believe.
Wow. Had
a real good career. But yeah, there's been a lot of good players come out of El Paso and come out of Eastwood, especially.
Is Grudzelanek on the top of the list?
Well, Mark went to Hanks. Yeah. Other than Mark actually helped me move into my house when we bought. Yeah. Mark, I played with him in Montreal for a while. He was just a baby when he was there, but he's a heck of a player, man, and he strung it out for quite a few years.
Yeah, I think he's got a couple of kids trying to play.
Does he?
I think so.
That's good, and that's what you know, that kind of talent. If you can pass that on, even to a little bit, you know, that the kids have a chance.
Yeah. He was a better basketball player than baseball.
Well, yeah, I can't speak to that. I don't know, but I knew he was a heck of an athlete.
Yeah, he was. He was. So what else? What are you trying to do these days? What are you doing these days?
Oh, nothing. I work on Fort Bliss for a government contractor. We do well. They do a little bit of everything over there, but I'm actually in the department that does the fields, and I have my turf and ornamental licenses, my pesticide licenses, my herbicide licenses. We work. If they call us, if they have rattlesnakes, they need to move because everything's protected on the federal land. We go and we move the rattlesnakes for them, and just good pay, fairly easy work. But
Where'd you grow up over there? What street?
I grew up on Suez.
Oh, see, I grew up on Album.
Okay.
Sumatra went right into my driveway. So we
No
were
kidding.
close. We were close.
I was Sumatra from which? Oh, okay. So you were Album across from between McRae and Wedgwood.
Yeah. You were the other way.
I'm between Zanzibar and Wedgwood.
Yeah.
You know where the pool is, right?
Which pool on Suez?
On Suez, yeah.
Let me tell you a funny story. My little brother and I would get up every morning. We lived on Boys D Arc, and we would go to TG&Y and steal a piece of bubble gum. One piece of bubble gum for some stupid reason. So we got caught. And my brother was 8 years old, and he was a catcher, and he caught Lonnie Duggar, who was 10 years old. So nothing happened to my little brother, but my punishment was I was afraid of the water. And Mark Bombard was actually the lifeguard at the pool. And my dad threw me in the deep end for punishment. I'm screaming, I can't swim. I'm swimming back to the side of the pool. And it goes on and on and on. And it's just funny to look back. Mark was the lifeguard there.
That is pretty funny. I should have brought that Eastwood pool up to Bombi and see what he says. He was the lifeguard there. That's funny.
He was it. He was all over my dad's ass. Leave him alone. Leave him alone.
Old Bombi sitting up in that chair, about 5'4" of him, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. He came
I
out.
grew up swimming at the YMCA East Valley. My mom would take my sister and me over to swim team in the mornings, and we'd do swim. I got to about 9, 10 years old. Once I had to start swimming more than one length of the pool, I started saying, you know what, this ain't for me.
Yeah.
I never went down to that pool until I was a little bit older, junior high, getting into high school. And then summers I lived down. In fact, I met my wife down
there. Yeah. I cut the grass down there the same time I was getting thrown in the pool.
But a funny story about Suez. You remember the name Joe Haig, right?
Oh yeah.
He lived across the street and 2 houses down from where my parents live.
Really?
We lived on the same street.
Wow. Remember those days you'd walk to school?
To East Point, yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember when it burned down?
I did. We wound up. I think I was in the third grade, third or fourth grade, and they moved us to the church at the corner of Album and Zanzibar. Yeah. We went to school there for a whole year.
Wow. Yeah, I remember when that all happened. Did you play at Album Park?
Oh, did I ever? I moved up. I mean, we started in the, they didn't have coach pitch or T-ball back then. You started in the little field, and then when you got old enough, you moved to the middle one, and then when you played in the pony, and I played in that park. I played football, I played baseball, I played soccer, and I mean, my dad was taking us over there. Seemed like back in the day, when you were playing on a team, you had practice every night. So right. You get home from school, or Dad gets home from work and we head over to the park for practice.
Yeah, you should have seen what it was like when you're 4 doors away.
Yeah.
That's all we did. That's all we did.
Even when I wasn't playing, we lived over there. We ran around at night. We got chased by the cops, being in the park after it closes. And it's just that Album Park was a huge part of my childhood.
Yeah. Do you remember any of the Pereiras?
Mike?
Yep.
Yeah.
Their dad was screaming and yelling at a game one time, and the other parents went and got him and carried him off and threw him in the lake and broke his leg at Album Park.
No way.
Yeah. Fred Pereira.
Good times. We're one of the boys, Mike. Mike sounds familiar.
Mike was older, and then I think there's Alex. He's got a sister named Renee.
Okay.
But Mike was a big Eastwood football player, quarterback, and all that.
I think Mike's the one I would remember. I remember the name anyway, but
yeah.
But no, Album Park is still a you drive by there at night and see the lights on and the kids out on the field, and it's a comforting,
yeah, it is,
thing to know that what we did for so many years still
being done.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think when you drive by Eastwood? It's a different looking deal, isn't it?
I drive by, my youngest is going there, and
really?
Yeah, I've got friends that are teachers and coaches there. So I've been able to walk around a little bit in there, and it's mind boggling.
How do you like what they did to the gym?
We've been in there twice. My youngest, she's a cheerleader. And
no, but from the outside with the players on the building.
I think it's neat. I think it's cool that they recognized the state championship team.
I was on that team.
I know. We saw the banner. I was showing my wife. We saw the banner. We were looking at all, because my wife and I hung out with the wrestlers at Eastwood.
Yeah.
And we were looking at the banners in the old gym.
Yeah.
And we saw the banner for y'all, and I was showing her. There's Doug, and but yeah, it was pretty cool.
It's like what you're talking about. We played basketball 350 days a year.
Yeah, sure.
That's all we did was play
Cosmos.
basketball.
Go over to Cosmos Park.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah,
sure.
I was over there.
Kids don't play like that anymore. I mean,
video games, and social media, and they TikTok, Doug. They TikTok, and it's a shame that things have gotten to where they've gotten in the world with that stuff. I've got some pretty harsh feelings about it, but every now and then you have something special happen, like what's the kid from Coronado that's at Texas?
He's doing great, isn't he?
Yeah. Every now and then you have a shiny spot like that happen, and it kind of gives you a little bit of hope. But nowadays kids, and the things that were killing baseball back when I was coming up through the ranks were the academies.
Yeah.
The IMGs and things like that.
Yep.
And these kids were coming out. They were coming out fundamentally perfect with no feel for the game. All they did was drill. All they did was work on this, work on that. So fundamentally they were great, but you put them into a situation, in a game, and they didn't know what to do. And we would all throw our hands up going, these academies are ruining the game. Well, now it's not the academies. It's everybody being more interested in staying at home and playing video games and stuff like that. And that's a shame, because like the first really good bat. Back in the day, a good bat was $300. It was those green Eastons.
Yeah.
I was at the baseball field at Eastwood when my dad brought me my first good baseball bat.
Really?
And he walked out on the field, handed me the bat, and I was out there with about 10 or 11 other guys, and we started hitting with it.
Yeah.
We lived. That was the way we grew up. We were either on the baseball field, on the football field, on the basketball court, or in the pool swimming, or we were outside though. You wanted to talk to a girl, you wrote a note, you passed it to her.
Right. Right.
Things have changed.
How about the Waco Club? You ever out there?
I was out there many a time.
And wasn't that a great deal?
I love the high dive.
I love the little golf course. I mean, gee, man.
I never played. I didn't get into golf until I got to the big leagues.
Really?
Yeah.
And it's something to do on your day off.
Oh, we would do that. We'd do that every day except when we pitched. That was the one drawback of being a reliever, is when I knew I was up that night, I wouldn't go. But being a starter, you could golf what, 4 days in a row, and then you pitch and then you start golfing again. But we used to, Gil Heredia, myself, and a couple other guys would sit in the clubhouse during games. They had a golf almanac. We had a big golf almanac book. We would be looking at our road trips coming up and where we were going to be and where we could golf. And then we would call those courses and say, hey, this is so-and-so with Montreal. We're going to be there. Can we sneak on at, 6 o'clock on Tuesday or Wednesday? And we'd get off the plane and go to the golf course.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was.
So you golf now?
I'm down to once a week. When I wasn't working, I was golfing 3 or 4 times a week. But now that I'm working Monday through Friday, I'm down to one day on Saturday with a good group I have out at Horizon.
Yeah.
And we like to pass our money back and forth, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, Butch, I appreciate you doing this for me. And I don't know what Kaplowitz and I can do, but we're sure going to try.
I know. You know what? I appreciate anything. If you guys are pushing the community college, I don't think there's going to be anything. Nothing's going to happen there.
You never know.
Well, I don't know, but I've been through it. This last time was the 3rd time. I actually had enrolled in classes at EPCC.
Really?
That's how committed I was. I told them I'll go back to school and I'll work on my degree. Other colleges do that.
Right.
Other colleges let coaches, pursue their career their degree while they're coaching.
Yeah.
And I told them
the thing you have to offer is you're not going anywhere.
Well, and that's, I can't say that loud and clear enough. I don't want to leave El Paso. I have no intentions of leaving El Paso. I don't care if the University of Texas calls me and says, hey, do you want to come? I don't want to live in Austin. I like El Paso.
Yeah, I do too.
So my family's here. So,
how many kids do you have?
I have 3. I have 2 adult children living in Dallas, and then my almost 15-year-old that's still with us.
Yeah.
So
4 all in Austin.
All in Austin.
Yes.
That's traffic. Yeah. Well, so Dallas, San Antonio, Austin.
Yeah.
It's all about the same.
Yeah.
Shit, you've been out on the freeway at 5 o'clock here lately?
It's terrible.
It's terrible here too.
But so how about the east side of town? When I was growing up over there, you got off on Yarborough, it was desert.
Yeah. Yeah. I used to be able to hear we could hear the coyotes.
Yeah.
From our house at Suez.
Yep.
When I was a little boy. But the sun would go down and we could hear the coyotes. Yarborough. Yeah. The Albertsons there on Yarborough and Montwood, it wasn't there. There was desert on the other side of Yarborough.
It was called Skaggs Albertsons.
Yeah, Skaggs.
Remember?
I remember.
Montwood was the main drag.
and it went to nowhere.
It went nowhere.
I can remember in high school going out to the end of Edgemere and George Dieter and being in desert. We would have bonfires out there every night.
Yep.
Or every weekend, every Friday and Saturday night. You know, and it's you drive out there now, you drive another 15 miles and it's all houses and
I don't know my way around over there anymore. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, I can't leave the east side. I just I don't have any desire to be on the other side of town.
How far away do you guys live now?
We got rid of our house. I lived down in the Paseos for what, almost 20 years.
Yeah.
And then the kids left and you know, we're paying for this big house and you know, the money's not coming in like it used to. And so we decided to move back in closer to where she and I both grew up. And plus the fact that traffic out there, you know, once you get out by Montwood High School and everything, it's a nightmare.
Yeah, it is.
And I lived just around the block from Fred Loya. He was doing those Halloween and Christmas shows every, you know, it was getting to be a nightmare too.
Yeah.
So we got rid of that house and moved we rented for a while and moved into a house right around the corner from Alba Park.
Really?
And yeah, and lived there for about a year and a half, and then found a house. I'm right now where I'm at. It's over by the YMCA.
Yeah.
Which ironically is the Fred Loya YMCA now. But we live right in here. It's you know, I'm about 3 minutes from my mom. If she were to need me to get to the house, so we're not too far from where we grew up, and the traffic's not bad. I'm just literally just off of Yarborough.
Well, thanks, man. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
I appreciate it.
Okay, Butch. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.